Oh, the courses of I-75 are heard throughout the land as we welcome in Patrick Andrews from the Toledo Blade. Patrick, a day later, it's still unbelievable the way Bowling Green came back and won that game.
That was crazy. That was, when you talk about the all-time great action games, like you think about like the 1 year where UT scored in the 60s in back-to-back weeks, and you think about all the great Marshall games over the years. You can definitely add last night's game to Matt Gore because it was unbelievable.
The Bowling Green Falcons almost lost this game. If you looked at that ESPN probability index, which you wrote about that on Wednesday, it's pretty amazing the fluctuations. The fact that the Falcons had that 21-point lead in the second quarter and then had to score with 9 seconds remaining. We've talked about this all season long, the maturity of this team this season, and it was on display last night to rally like that.
Yeah, last night we saw that was the final form of Scott Lupper's been saying all year. This team finishes games the way it couldn't have a year ago. And that last night was the highest culmination of that because there were just so many things Bowling Green did that they wouldn't have done a year ago, like going up 21-0 and then allowing UT 14 points, and then being able to steady themselves. Ultimately, UT came back and took the lead, but BG was able to steady themselves in the middle portion of the game, force a couple turnovers. That doesn't happen a year ago. At the end of the game, where UT takes 35-34 lead. Matt McDonald doesn't settle in and make those throws on 3rd and 15 and 3rd and 10. It's like every time I think about this game, there are these plays that I forget happened, but those are 2 plays that happened, and there's just veteran throws from Matt McDonald. McDonald was throwing some of the best deep balls of his career last night. I don't know if he could have made those throws a year ago. He certainly didn't have the weapons a year ago, and the way he has in Odu Hilaire and C.J. Lewis, too. Hilaire having one of the great receiving games in Bowling Green history. That's something else they didn't have a year ago. It was just a showcase of Bowling Green's improvement year over year, and the result is one of the great wins of recent Falcon history.
Bowling Green, that 21-0 lead, the defense played a major part of that in that first quarter. Carl Brooks was all over the place. Somebody that's been consistent for the Falcons the last couple of seasons. When they needed him to set the tone early last night, he did that.
Absolutely. He ends the game with 3.5 tackles for loss. He was excellent all game long. Walter Hare was also very good, too. I was pretty taken aback by just how consistently BG was in UT's backfield over and over and over. And running quarterbacks have given BG, I wrote about this ad nauseum in the week leading up to the game. Running quarterbacks have burned BG all year long. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Parker McKinney, Colin Schley, DJ Irons, you name it. These guys, all these guys I just named have put up either 100 yards or a couple touchdowns on BG. And last night, Tucker Gleason got his yards on the ground. But BG didn't fold. They kept rushing the passer. They ended the game with an eye-popping 14 tackles for loss. They were just unbelievable with their pass rush. And you flip the coin. BG's offensive line held up pretty well against UT's pass rush. And I think Loeffler went out of his way to mention both Loeffler and Matt McDonald went out of their ways to mention the offensive line's performance. They were terrific, and that was the difference in the game. It was probably like you wouldn't think of this game. The Miami game we talked about was won in the trenches, one with the offensive line performance. You wouldn't think of a 42-35 game as being won in the trenches, but that's absolutely what happened last night.
You can't spell Bowling Green without bowl, but the Falcons haven't been to a bowl in several seasons. That changes this year. They're now bowl eligible. All of a sudden, people in Bowling Green are starting to look at destinations like Orlando, like the Bahamas, like Detroit, maybe Boise. Someplace nice in December will be the destination for the Falcons.
A lot of different destinations on the table. You mentioned the Quick Lane Bowl, and we've talked about like the consideration of with Scott Lupler's health. When he had his health scare, there was talk of when can he get on a plane next. So we'll see. We've done this thought experiment before. We'll see if that factors into where Bowling Green is placed at all. But I think Bowling Green is the type of team that you get them in a bowl game against a Conference USA team, Mountain West team. You'll see a high flying game like you saw last night. I just keep coming back to how a couple weeks ago we didn't think BG would be able to win in a shootout like this. And in zany bowl games, if you want to look ahead to bowl games, that will serve you well. That helps you get a trophy, Bahamas Bowl trophy, Potato Bowl trophy for the case. That kind of offensive acumen at 2 p.m. on Festivus or Christmas Eve. that's exactly what you're looking for. So it's a time of great optimism in Bowling Green after last night, and yeah, as you said at the top, they still have MAC championship goals on the table too.
Yeah, exactly. So December 26th is the bowl game at Ford Field. December 2nd is the MAC championship game. And that East Division title has not been sewn up by anybody yet. It could be BGUT Part 2 on December 2nd.
And I think fans in Northwest Iowa would go crazy for something like that. If it was anything like last night, especially, well, if you're a UT fan or a BG fan going to your place of employment today, you're probably hearing, if you're a BG fan, you're hearing from the other side, well, we didn't have DeQuan, so it doesn't count. Well, assuming UT does have DeQuan at Ford Field, well, you look at the fact that Gleason put up a Finn-esque stat line both through the air and on the ground, so that could be a blueprint for BG to stop him in the MAC championship. But getting to the MAC championship will be the hard part. This is what they need to do. They need to beat OU, and they need either Akron or Kent State to beat Buffalo. Kent State, we saw, put a hurting on Bowling Green, so we know the Golden Flashes are capable of beating Buffalo. Akron, probably not capable of beating Buffalo. They've been the worst team in the league all year long. And Bowling Green OU, that's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a high-scoring game between BG and your alma mater. And I think that it's such a confidence boost for BG to know that they can put points on the board like this. I think they kind of forgot that part of their identity. They established it earlier in the year. They put obviously a freaky game, but 57 up on Eastern Kentucky. They put 34 up on Marshall. And that's a good Marshall defense. And I think that as the year went on, they constructed their identity on defense. They struggled a little bit on offense, consistency from week to week. They were missing guys. They were missing Jamal Johnson for a while. They missed Teron Keith last week. How about him coming back and scoring the winning touchdown? Scott Lupper was effusive in his praise of Teron Keith after the game. He's been dealing with some personal stuff, but he was just terrific for them last night when they needed him the most. And I think that you put all those weapons together, and all the makings of a good offense were there. And last night we saw everybody clicking the way they need to. And I think that's going to be the key if BG is going to pull out a division title, which is crazy to think about considering the conversations we were having earlier this year. Is this where does this rank among the worst teams in the country? They've turned it all the way around.
Does Scott Loeffler deserve some Coach of the Year considerations now?
Definitely, absolutely. He to reiterate what I just said. They did not look good against UCLA in their opener. Now, granted, UCLA has gone on to be one of the best teams in the country. If it were 3-4 years in the future, we'd be talking about UCLA. We'd be talking about how Bowling Green lost to a playoff team. Probably they're right on the margin. And Eastern Kentucky, that was a really bad loss too, obviously, because it is Eastern Kentucky. And there were other games. The Buffalo absolute beatdown. They looked. Scott Lupper looked defeated after that. And the next week when BG beat Miami, he said last week I was ready to jump off SIBO, and this week is maybe probably the happiest I've ever been. But it's just a masterful in-season turnaround for Bowling Green. And yes, I think Scott Lupper. If he's not the Coach of the Year in the MAC, I can't readily think of another example. Tim Albin at OU would obviously be another candidate. They were quite bad last year, losing to Duquesne, and they've turned it around. But Loeffler deserves that consideration because BG's back on track. I think there was a lot of thought that maybe the game of college football had passed BG by. I don't want to get like existential here, but they run the third smallest budget in the country. And my colleague Dave Briggs has written there. I think he's written at some point. They're long on tradition, short on cash, and you just have to spend to win now. And this is kind of a little bit of there's not a team in the MAC that's like coining money, but it's a little bit of a money ballsy season for Bowling Green, kind of like Kent State had last year to sort of put everything together on a low budget and contend for and perhaps win a division title.
So they'll have that chance this coming Tuesday in Athens. The Bobcats and the Bowling Green Falcons will square off. Interesting to see in the next couple of months if there's an uptick in babies born in Wood County by the name of Teron, after what Teron Keith did last night against the Toledo Rockets. I want to thank our guest, Patrick Andrews from the Toledo Blade, for joining us tonight and all season long. Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, Mark.